The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others.
Michael Leach is a trailblazing executive, board advisor, and the first ever Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for the White House under the Biden administration. He's a leader in HR, diversity, inclusion, and a speaker and author. He's making an impact worldwide. He was in Ghana, and I had the chance to sit down with him for an exclusive interview. I feel so honored to be here with you, Michael Leach. You are in Ghana for the first time.
Yes, finally.
Yeah, and you are also, you made history as the White House's first Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
In the Biden administration. I know that you recently have left the White House. There's a lot of changes happening in the U.S., but we won't touch that yet. I first want to congratulate you for that. And then I wanted to know, what was the experience like to be in that position, making an impact?
Yeah, it was nothing short of a blessing. Deeply purposeful, deeply meaningful. And it wasn't something that I had envisioned for myself. I'm a faith-driven guy. I often tell people, you will block your dream if you allow your fear to grow bigger than your faith. And along the way in the journey, my faith led me to saying yes to God and to serving in politics, and so the experience was eye-opening for me because it was a field that I'd never served in or worked in before. But as I got deeper into it, it opened my eyes to this principle that I've tried to live by, and that is the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And so it was eye-opening, learning the intricacies of just government at the federal level, but then also doing it with a pioneering sort of entrepreneurial mindset to build something that never existed before, that you hope, will outlive yourself in your tenure. So it was a special time, challenging time. Nothing is easy, but it was certainly necessary.
You're already dropping gems, and we just started the conversation. I'm curious to know, because you talked about it saying yes to God, and it wasn't really a space that you were in before.
Yeah.
You are originally from Chicago.
Yes.
So you didn't grow up in that Washington, D.C. environment. What were you doing before politics?
Yes. So before politics, I worked nearly a decade in professional sports, specifically for the NFL, the National Football League, and received my first sort of big entryway opportunity in Chicago, where I'm originally from, as you said, with the Chicago Bears, serving as the assistant to head coach. At the time, Lovie Smith, who was the first ever Black NFL head coach to advance to the Super Bowl. Not many folks remember that. Playing his mentor, Tony Dungy, he lost to his mentor, but the first nonetheless, and did that for 3 years, really serving as functionally his chief of staff, managing the fiscal year operating budget, and the middle person between him and players, fans, media, and owners across the globe. And fast forward from there, I wanted to learn the business of sports in the NFL. I was really focused on wanting to become the commissioner even, or team president. And so I left Chicago after 3 years, moved to New York City. Now this is 2014, to work in the NFL headquarters and serving in the management council, which is essentially, they function as the multi-bargaining unit arm of the NFL that represents the billionaire owners or the 32 ownership groups on all matters related to the collective bargaining agreement. So the CBA, player contracts, the salary cap across the 32 teams. And so did that for 5 or 6 years in New York, but running parallel to the business aspect of it, which me just having a deeply vested interest and passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And so I voluntarily, when I wasn't busy with the day-to-day business aspect of my portfolio, driving some of the inclusion efforts for the NFL. And that's where the spark grew and became more prevalent for me to sort of lead efforts for the NFL Diversity Council, the Bill Walsh Diversity Coaching Fellowship Program, which has a really unique, powerful story that I think really ignited that flame for me, that, hey, there's something more to this inclusion thing than what's on the surface. Yeah.
It's really interesting, these things that you are talking about that you did, because the general public doesn't think about the fact that sports is a business. People just think about it as a game, just a bunch of guys playing a sport. But the fact that there's all this back end stuff that the average person doesn't think about.
Yes.
Did you play sports, and that kind of led you into getting into this this area of it as being a business?
Yes, it's a great question. And it's one I jokingly share with folks because as I was growing up, south side of Chicago, my dream was to be an athlete. Everyone from, the inner city, and most folks look like you. The way out is to be a pro athlete. And
Yeah.
that's all you knew. And
Which sport did you want?
basketball
Okay.
originally. And this is why I like, sit down interviews, not stand up interviews. So you can't see how tall or short I am. I think that's
But there
why I
was
like,
Muggsy Bogues. He wasn't tall and he was really successful.
he was eating and drinking something that I don't know yet because I still can't jump that high. But speaking of jumping high, I credit this to my older brother who majored in sports broadcasting and later went on to work for ESPN and producing and stuff like that. And growing up, I loved wearing suits. We would go to church, I put on a suit and tie. He was a 6-year-old wearing a suit and tie to church. But I also loved participating in sports. I played basketball, track, football, soccer, you name it. And my brother said, well, stop growing, but you're incredibly smart. Why not bridge those worlds together and pursue sports management when I was getting ready to pursue undergraduate studies. And so that's when I learned about the area of professional sports and sports management as a long-term career. And so that's how I initially got into it. It was learning, like you said, there's so many roles, just like both in the public and private sector.
Yeah.
You need marketing, right? You need sponsorships and strategic partnerships to drive things. Leadership and organizational culture, right, is needed for sports teams. How do you engage and create the experience for your consumer or for your client or for that said community? That also was in sports. And so there was a lot of business verticals that existed that I didn't know, that I learned going through the program that opened my eyes like, wow, I can actually build a life doing this and have fun while doing it.
What have you, because I know when people get into positions like yours, especially from the Black community, sometimes you get the opportunities to talk to young people about what possibilities are out there.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned, growing up in the inner city, a lot of times sports is what people see as the way out. Have you talked to kids about, okay, you want to do sports, but did you know about this business side of sports? Do well in school. Maybe you can also look at potential management positions in the sport you love.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that I'm doing now through Bridge Trust Partners, that's a new consulting firm and impact-driven storytelling practice that we're leading now across so many different intersections. Want to do a lot more public speaking now that I'm out of sort of the political arena and can kind of lift my head up and think very thoughtfully and deliberately on how do I add value to others. And that's one of the ways I've been trying to do more of is public speaking. And so absolutely, yes. One of the biggest things that I've come to find is that there's this fundamental principle that exists because, when you're growing up and going through school and you're young, I want to be this or I aspire to do this. That principle is this: distance creates distortion, right? The more distant you are from a person, from a place, or from a thing, the more distorted your view will be of that thing. Right. And so how do we sort of close the gap between knowing and doing? And one of the primary vehicles for that is sharing your story, is in the telling of our stories. And so a major thing that I try to do and emphasize is sharing with folks not only what's possible in sports, but what's possible when you really utilize your faith, the belief in what's possible, irrespective of what you were born into. And I absolutely try to make it abundantly clear that not only is it possible, but the connections and the relationships along the way matter down the way to make what you think is impossible possible. Yeah.
I'm curious to know, after working in sports for a number of years, what opportunity led to you going to the White House?
Yes, I get that question a lot. And I'm still asking myself that question too. No, in all honesty, I would say that a few things. One, I got to give a quick shout out for my wife, Brittany, who has been just a tremendous partner. We met in undergrad. And so she's sort of seen the entirety of this journey. And there was a short stint while I was still serving at the NFL headquarters where she had taken a short leave from her role at New York University, where she's at currently now, to work on Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign bid in 2016. And they were based in and headquartered in Brooklyn, New York, where we were residing at the time. And so to make a long story short, you go visit, your significant other at their workplace if you want brownie points, but more so if you want to be interested in who are these folks that she's spending so much time with? And so just in a few visits that I met with her there at the office, I met one of her colleagues and had this method by way I connect with people and actually listening and learning who they are and where they want to go and how I can help them get there. And so fast forward, the campaign loses. We know what happens. Fast forward a few years later, one of her colleagues reached out to her and said, hey, I'm about to become the COO for then Vice President Joe Biden's presidential campaign bid in 2019. This is before 2020 even came about, asking if she was willing or interested to join the team. And she quizzed, no. She says, no, I'm not doing that emotional roller coaster again. I'm straight. And then he said, okay, well, I have this other role. It's like a chief HR officer, chief people officer, and head of diversity role. Do you know anyone? She asked me, did I know anyone? And again, you block your dream if you allow fear to go bigger than your faith. If any opportunity came my way that was not in sports, I ignored it, right? But God, in that moment when she told me what her friends shared with her, said, learn about the scope of this role. Maybe you can help someone get into this space. Again, one of the biggest adages I live by is that everyone communicates, but few connect. I said, connect with this gentleman. Get on a call with this gentleman, Ivy. Get to the end of the call, and I'm thinking, who can I connect? It wouldn't be a bad thing to have a relationship here. And the gentleman stops me, and he goes, well, I appreciate you making the time, and you're thinking about, others, but I've been following you through your wife on social media vicariously, and your ability to connect with people and lead culture. This would be a really great thing for us. I envision you for the role. What do you think? And I
Just in that
paused in
moment.
my tracks. Yes. Never worked a day in politics. Never worked in government in any sense of the word. And in that moment, I heard God speak, this is it. Those 3 words. But he gives you the option. You either say yes and you step forward in faith into uncertainty, trusting that he knows what he's doing, or you shrink back in fear and stay back in what you think is safety. And I said yes. And I resigned from the NFL, didn't take a leave of absence, resigned after a decade working in professional sports. And I started the next day. Keep in mind, I resigned on a Wednesday. It was June 19th, 2019. Juneteenth, all pun intended.
Yeah, Juneteenth. That's why I went like this. I'm like, was there a strategy with that?
Yeah, right.
Because Juneteenth and then the role you actually got. Okay.
I know, right? And started the next day, June 20th. And that was on the presidential campaign side, which is a long stretch.
Yes.
And it was a handful of us that started. We just built it from the ground up. We ended up winning, which led to me becoming the first ever chief diversity officer in the White House. And so that's how it happened.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How did you perceive the impact that you had? Because I know that the term is over, and you look back. How do you perceive, the impact that you had in that role? Because I know the new administration is really not interested in the same thing, but
not too much
at all.
They're like, what is that? We are living in very interesting times right now. Very interesting times and challenging times as well. But I try to look at things through a lens of, every challenge is really an opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? If you look at it through the right lens. And I shared this with another friend recently, and I'll share it with you too, is that, in life, you should never stop learning because life never stops teaching. And if it's one thing that life has taught us these past several weeks and months, whatever it is now, it's all a blur right now, it's that progress is not permanent. And neither is time that we're given here on earth to make it. And so when I think about the impact we made, I think about the lives and, the roles and, the resources, the processes and power that we were able to accomplish. And I look at it through that lens in that, we got something done that was encouraging, that actually moved the needle. And while in every transition of power across every country, across every organization, there comes a measure of instability and uncertainty with that. We have to acknowledge that. But acknowledging it is a starting point. It's not a stopping point, right? We live in a day and age now where we are overloaded with information. Like we receive information now on our phones and more information in a single day than our ancestors did in a lifetime.
It's true.
And so what I've been trying to do in terms of not thinking so much on the impact I made, but what do we do and where do we go from here, right? Not responding to every announcement or headline. And really doing a few things. The first is staying in community, It's helping me keep a fresh lens because this is still fresh. I left a year ago, but it's still fresh and I'm still processing. But staying in community is number one. Number two is being very, very thoughtful about walking in purpose. And number three is protecting and cultivating your peace, which is not mutually exclusive across those three things. And so when I think about what we did, it's really focusing on those three things right now, because what I see and hear from a lot of folks is that they're focusing on things we can't control and missing opportunities on things that we can. And so I think that, from conversations I've had, we've made tremendous impact, but now it's about community, purpose, and cultivating and preserving peace. And that's how I try to look at it.
Working in the White House, I want to know, I mean, I've never been inside the White House. I've been outside the gates and looking and seeing, you take your picture smiling, like, being inside the White House, what are some of the things that you looked at and you thought, wow, this is what it's really like?
Yeah.
What can we do to make this change or make this happen? Or you see something and be like, oh, I know you probably can't say some of these things, but I'm just curious.
I'll let go of that top secret clearance. I don't miss it either.
What it's like to be, inside those doors and seeing that you're within an organization that is helping to run the country.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Yeah, very great question, and a loaded one. I try to distill it like this, because I often say, when you because everyone has a different idea, right? And if we're not careful as leaders, we can focus too much on changing policies and not enough on changing minds, right? That is the hearts and the minds of people. And so when you think about just the federal government as a whole, political hiring, particularly in the White House, has often been about letting folks in that arena go to their existing networks as a quick and efficient way of securing trusted and loyal staff, right? Folks know who they know. But because historically, the political arena has been predominantly driven by straight white male dominance in leadership roles, you name it, across the board, if we allowed that to just continue, doing so would just replicate talent instead of expanding talent, right? And so how do we sort of close that gap? And so, one of the things that I tried to do from the onset is do a lot of listening and learning. I think a lot of, I wouldn't say young leaders, just inexperienced leaders, because I know some really great leaders who are young and folks who are older and to be effective in this work, diversity, equity, inclusion, or any sector, it requires you to listen and learn before you can truly lead. And a lot of people try to do it the opposite way. They try to lead first to make a good first impression. Over time, they learn the way they're leading isn't working. And then they try to start listening when it's too late and they've already lost the relational trust needed to drive the change. And so in the context of the White House, one of the things off the gate was, if we want to build a staff reflective of America's diversity, as we said all this time on the campaign trail, then we have to look at how hiring managers are considering talent. And so we implemented some very thoughtful, deliberate processes and procedures and policies for folks to consider, again, not hiring quotas, but consideration factors. Who can we source from? Who do we make sure is at the table of our consideration before you're just giving roles out? And what we found was that over time, that led to us becoming established as the most diverse White House staff in U.S. history. Nearly 50% came from diverse, racially, ethnically diverse communities. And so that was one thing. Internships, White House internships were unpaid for decades and decades, which, as we know, data shows is a tremendous barrier for entry for folks from underserved communities. And so we did that. So an influx of representation at the internship level in the White House, which again opened doors for making sure that how do we best deliver on the needs for the American public was met, and was met with some lived experiences across the board. So did different things, but at a high level, that's kind of how I thought about how to approach it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, quick shift.
Yes.
Because we're in Ghana.
Yes.
This is your first time in Ghana.
Yep.
I want to know, how do you feel being here? And did you ever imagine that you would come here?
Wow. I feel free. You would just let that settle. Free. I feel purpose. I feel calling. I feel urgency. I feel family. all of the above. And I knew at some point I would come here and visit. My wife actually took a trip here as part of her graduate program back in 2019.
Oh, she did.
Yes, with NYU. And so she had a firsthand experience that was sharing with me. And again, I'm a faith-driven guy, and I often say that just like our relationship with God, you know, not to get preachy, but he can't always be measured or explained, but he can be experienced. And I think the same is true here in Ghana. And being here, experiencing it, special shout out to my dear friend and brother and mentor, all of the above, business partner, Kwame Anku, who really encouraged me after I left the White House to not only build my own company, but to come on this visit to really explore and learn about the opportunities that existed here. And being here now with my wife, with Kwame and some other close dear friends who are also here with us, it feels like it had to happen at this time, at this moment. And I'm really, really excited because now that I've been here to reconnect not only with the land and with the people and with opportunities, I'm even more excited around how do I sort of, again, telling our stories, but share our lived experiences with the folks back in the US. How do I reignite that flame to show them that we are not only here ready, willing, and able to welcome you, but you can have a very purposeful and prosperous present and future for you and your families if you do get reconnected. And the culture here is, oh my goodness, it's a beautiful culture. And so I'm really grateful, excited for us to come, and yeah, couldn't be a better place to be.
That's
at now.
great. And the business you're building now, what do you do?
Yeah, so Bridge Trust Partners, out to say we're a strategic consulting practice and firm that I would say we operate both at the intersection of business, social change, education across some other sectors, and impact storytelling firm as well. Have some significant projects that we'll be announcing soon through that lens in the literary world. But we really want to specialize in developing high impact initiatives, right, that connects people, organizations, leagues, brands, communities in meaningful, lasting ways, which allows us to let that take shape in various different forms, whether that's in helping folks in the finance world, helping folks in the social impact world, helping folks in the education or professional sports sectors. And so it has allowed us to really be thoughtful and intentional with who we work with and collaborate with. And I think the heart behind it really is this idea that one of the most common ways people sabotage their future success is when they unconsciously start competing with the same people they were meant to collaborate with.
You know what? That is so enlightening that you said that, because I think I actually see that. I know this is your first time in Ghana. You
Yes.
haven't spent a lot of time here yet, but I think one of the things that happens here is there are people who want to compete rather than collaborate. And actually a Nigerian came to Ghana some years ago and said that to me. He said he noticed that Ghanaians don't collaborate as much as Nigerians do.
Wow.
Ghanaians, a lot of them want to start their own, and some of them don't realize that if you work together, you can actually build something great. I'm not saying they all do it, but I do see it a lot where people don't want to collaborate. Yeah. So I'm glad you said that.
No, collaboration is a powerful vehicle for driving progress forward in a meaningful, thoughtful, and consistent way. And competition has its place, right, in sports and even politics. But I think we forget to turn off the competition switch in moments like these, during inflection points like these. And so that's one of the biggest things that we wanted to solve for. And the name is very intentional, like Bridge Trust. Like, you're not going to ride your bike or drive a vehicle across a bridge unless you trust that bridge can connect you from where you are to where you aspire to be. And so we are doing that now. You can find bridgetrustpartners.com is where folks can kind of find us and learn about how we can serve and add value to them and their lives, communities, and organizations across the world. But we're really excited about where we are, where we're going, and who we're doing it with.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for spending time today.
Absolutely.
I want to quickly ask one question.
Yes.
What is your favorite Ghanaian dish that you've tried since you've been here? If you've tried a few.
Yes. Wow. I gotta get the name right. I'm gonna have to call.
There's
call
jollof. There's jollof rice. Can I get a call?
Can I phone a friend?
Can I phone a friend?
In all honesty, I had some really incredible jollof rice yesterday
Okay.
that has changed. Like when I go back to the U.S., I'm going to throw that box of white rice I had. There's something about having flavor and diversity in your rice. I don't know what it is. But no, the jollof rice was amazing. We had some amazing tilapia and it's a host of things. So
Yeah.
I will be sure to, next time we have this conversation, I'm gonna have a whole list.
Okay.
Maybe we can do a cooking show and tell folks,
Cool.
yeah, yeah, let's just do it, put it to the test. But it's been really amazing. The people, the culture, it's been something I'll never forget, and I encourage everyone to get tapped in now.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Enjoy the rest of your time and safe travels back.
Thank you so much. I'm proud of you. This is an amazing platform
Thank you.
that you're doing and leading, and you're doing an incredible job and work. And so thank you for who you are and what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you for watching. If you've not subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button because as my numbers grow, I'm able to bring you more exciting guests that will add value to your life. And put in the comments if you want to ask him any questions. Maybe I'll shoot an email so we can answer the questions for you. Maybe you want to invest in his business, what he's doing, or maybe you're the right candidate. You never know. So thank you again. My name is Ivy Prosper, and I'll see you next time.